I never expected to be mocked at the gala until a billionaire made me feel like royalty. I will never forget that night. The air was thick with anticipation, shimmering gowns swirling like clouds of cotton candy. The lights sparkled like stars, casting glimmers on the floor that felt almost magical. But in my heart, I felt small. I stood there, clutching my drink, feeling the pulse of the crowd swirl around me. My palms were sweaty, my heart raced, and the laughter echoed like thunder. I was a nobody in a room filled with somebody's wealthy, powerful, and dripping with confidence. As I scanned the sea of glittering attire, I caught glimpses of perfection, perfectly styled hair, flawless makeup, and smiles that looked real but were as cold as ice. And then, amidst the splendor, came the snickering. The murmurs turned into cackles aimed straight at me. I shuffled, stepping back, feeling my cheeks burn. I was wearing last season's dress, the one that made me feel a little less invisible. But that night, it felt like a neon sign screaming, "Look at the loser." A sharp laugh sliced through the atmosphere. "Do you even belong here?" someone said, their voice dripping with mockery. I froze, the laughter echoing in my ears like a death knell. My throat tightened. I wanted to disappear, to blend into the wallpaper. Instead, I felt trapped, like a fly in a spider's web. Yet, in that moment of despair, a figure broke through the throng. He was tall, with an air of confident elegance that drew eyes like moths to a flame. Dark hair, impeccable suit, and a smirk that could ignite the room. It was him, the billionaire, known for his charm and mystery. They all whispered his name like a spell, and I barely heard my own thoughts. As he approached, my heart pounded. I held my breath, waiting for the moment of judgment. Would he join in the laughter? Would I become an even bigger target? But then, he looked at me, and the crowd faded into a distant hum. His eyes held a softness, a promise of understanding, that broke the tension like fragile glass. Without a word, he stepped closer, pulled me into the spotlight, and took my hand. The laughter faded, turning into intrigued whispers. "How dare anyone question your presence here," he said, his voice a rich baritone that seemed to wrap around me like a warm blanket. "You're more than just a pretty face. Let's show them what it means to feel like royalty." My heart raced for the wildest of reasons. I felt something electric pass between us. It was almost dizzying. But just as quickly as it came, doubt crept in. Was this a moment of salvation or another layer of embarrassment? But then, just as my hope began to blossom, a commotion broke out at the edge of the crowd. Gasps. Screams. Chaos erupted, shifting the energy from whimsical to sharp as knives. I squeezed his hand, the warmth of his grip grounding me amidst the upheaval. But in that split second, I saw something I could never have expected. His face twisted in shock as he recognized someone in the crowd. Who was it? What did he see that sent a chill through his expression? Was I about to uncover secrets beyond my imagination? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The noise overwhelmed me, but it was his expression that anchored my reality. He was no longer the charismatic billionaire defying the crowd's judgment. He was a man confronted by something or someone far more intimate, far more personal. His grip on my hand tightened, and the warmth that had ignited a flicker of hope in my chest began to dull. As heads turned and whispers ignited, I followed his gaze to the source of the chaos, a woman with a mane of raven hair that flowed behind her like a dark cloud, her gown black as night. She pushed through the throng, her eyes locked onto him as if drawn by gravity, and I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. "Jasper," she called, her voice cutting through the clamor. It was almost haunting, a melody laden with longing and unspoken words. I barely took a moment to understand the implication. The room was hushed, consumed by the tension simmering between them. "Lila," he replied, his tone suddenly laced with an edge I hadn't heard before. I felt like a ghost watching two people collide in a reality I couldn't grasp. The spark I had seen in his eyes moments ago flickered dangerously, hinting at histories I had no part in. Why are you here? Her voice trembled, but there was strength woven through her inquiry. The guests stood transfixed, their social games momentarily forgotten. I could feel the whispers rise again, each one sharper than the last. I could ask you the same, he shot back, but beneath the bravado, his vulnerability broke through like a fragile seal. My heart sank, whatever was brewing between them felt monumental. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. An ache blossomed in my chest, swelling with the understanding that my fairy tale moment was crumbling before my eyes. The thrill of being swept away by this billionaire, of finally feeling seen, now felt like a cruel mirage. I was nothing more than an interrupted spectacle, an afterthought. I hesitated, torn between wanting to slip away and the need for clarity. Would I be the one to ask Jasper what this meant? Or was there a way to escape this haunting scene altogether? But as Lilith's eyes flashed with an intensity that both entranced and terrified me, I knew I couldn't turn to my life isn't a game, Jasper, she continued, stepping closer, determination radiating from her like an unquenchable fire. You can't just waltz back into my world and expect everything to be okay. Not after everything that happened. Questions shot through me. Is there a shared pain lurking in their past like shadows in twilight? My heart raced not just with trepidation but a ripple of intrigue. I caught the fleeting glimpse of vulnerability on Jasper's face, the stone-cold facade cracking into something real. I didn't want to leave you, he said softly, the sharpness of his previous retort dulled as if it had been pricked by her words. It was an admission, a flicker of honesty wrapped in regret that pulsed through the air like a living entity. Lilith's expression softened for an instant before returning to one of steely resolve. And yet, you did. Just like you turned your back on everything we built together. You stood there in your fine suits while I was left to deal with the aftermath. The words were daggers, piercing the clamor that surrounded us, revealing the crack in his polished exterior. That I sensed the shift in the atmosphere as those charged words echoed far beyond the confines of their small argument. The crowd now buzzed with speculation, each whisper thicker with intrigue, hesitant yet hungry for this unexpected drama. Inot Jasper had become the almost invisible observer, the outsider whose world was being upturned by a history I was not prepared to face. Yet as the confrontation unfolded, I could feel a flicker of empathy surge inside me. I had once known what it was like to be on the receiving end of someone's heartbreak, the loneliness that echoed behind appealing facades, the feelings of inadequacy creeping in as joy slipped away. What is it that you want from me? Jasper struggled to piece his words together, vulnerability dipping into the silence. It wasn't defiance anymore, it was a plea, an inquiry wrapped in layers of regret and yearning. I want the truth, Lila shot back, a mix of anger and pain. I want you to realize that happiness isn't something you can buy with money or charm. It's earned. A shadow crossed his face. I saw it, the moment of reckoning. The soft edge of sorrow that brought clarity to his eyes, those depths now revealed hidden struggles I never knew existed beneath the surface of wealth and privilege. Maybe it's time we stop pretending, he began, but before he could finish, a sudden commotion erupted once again. A shout of someone's name broke through the tension, sending ripples of panic into the crowd. Watch out! The front row of onlookers parted hastily, creating a gap, and I turned just in time to see chaos unfold. A glass, a scream, a rushing wave of bodies crashing away from the source of panic. In the tumult, I felt a jolt before everything spiraled into chaos, and in that fleeting moment, I lost my grip on Jasper's hand. The crowd surged around us, and I was swept into the current of panic. As I struggled to regain my footing, my pulse pounded in my ears. The world spun in a blur of faces, the air thick with confusion and dread. And just as I turned back towards where I had last seen him, I realized with a sinking feeling that everyone I had just held dear had vanished into the unfolding storm. Where had he gone? The chaos swirled around me like an uncontainable storm. My heart raced as I fought to navigate the throng of bodies pushing away from the noise, desperate for a glimpse of Jasper. The moment we shared, so charged and filled with intense emotion, hung in the air like a whisper unfulfilled. But now it felt distant, slipping away from my grasp as the crowd's frenzy consumed everything. With feet racing, I pressed through the ocean of panic, stumbling here and there as eyes darted nervously from one uncertain face to the next. I heard scattered voices rising above the din, each inflection tinged with fear. Is anyone hurt? What happened? My breath hitched each time I repeated Jasper's name inwardly, praying that he would manifest before me again, that I could reclaim that jolt of connection, but the faces I scanned were strangers, intertwining with a fray of tuxedos and shimmering gowns, each one a reminder of the vulnerability lurking underneath the surface, the same vulnerability that now threatened to drown me in dread. Just as I began to lose hope, my vision settled on a flicker of movement at the edge of the room. In the dim light, a spotlight briefly illuminated a figure, and my heart leaped. It was Jasper. He stood at the center of the chaos, his shoulders rigid, as he struggled to clear the way to me. Our eyes locked, and for the briefest moment, the frenetic world around us faded, leaving only us suspended in that uncertain moment, but the connection was abruptly interrupted as he was engulfed by concerned onlookers. Fear gripped my heart anew as I fought through the last few bodies separating us. Jasper. I called out, my voice fighting against the tide of panic. My fingers grazed someone's shoulder, and I used that small connection to keep pushing forward. Then I heard Ida gasp, cutting through the tumult, a small commotion rising like a wave. My stomach dropped as uncertainty clawed at me, the air thick with unspoken implications. What unseen tension had we just stumbled into? What truths remained unspoken as we were swept up in this worldly hands of wealth and chaos? Finally, I broke through to the center, panting and bewildered. My eyes searched for Jasper and then found him, but my heart sank at the sight. He stood frozen, his eyes wide, locked onto Lila, who now emerged from the shadows in the wake of the commotion. She was breathing heavily, but something else flickered across her expression: determination, perhaps vengeance. Lila, wait. Jasper's voice strained, but she cut him off sharply, her eyes glinting with tears of frustration masked as fury. You don't get to tell me to wait, not after everything you've put me through. I felt the air thicken between us, the tension palpable. It was not just their unresolved past threatening to unravel like the fine threads of a prized garment, it was layered with the raw emotion I had clung to earlier with Jasper. The memory of warmth in his grip seemed inconceivable now, washed away with every harsh word Lila cast toward him. As if caught in an emotional crossfire, I stood frozen, desperate for the peace he had imbued between us moments ago. You don't understand. He pleaded, desperation seeping into his tone. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. She shot back, her voice rising above the thrumming bass of the party now dampened by the crack in their facade. You chose everything over me, including this charade. Something unfurled in me like an unraveling thread, pulling me into the fray. Each of Lilith's accusations resonated with the haunting fear of inadequacy I couldn't dismiss. With each word, I was pulled deeper into their shared wound, one I had tiptoed around all evening. Please, I whispered to myself, desperate for a hint of connection with Jasper again, for that spark of camaraderie that had ignited hope not long before. But now, the waves of their conflicting desires drowned me, suffocating any courageous resolve I thought I could muster. Suddenly, the din of the gala seemed to fade into a softer murmur, as if the universe was granting us a mere few quiet moments. Before the truth came crashing down. I could see his struggling, a man caught between two worlds, two desires, one shadowed by the past that refused to stay buried, and another pulling at him with the sweetness of possibilities yet unclaimed. Lila, we can't go back to that. I won't let the past dictate our decisions now, he implored, but the words seemed to ricochet off her, barely making a dent in the armor she had forged from their history. Before I could take another step toward them, a shrill voice broke through the haze, slicing through our gathering storm. What on earth is happening here? It was the event organizer, flanked by a cadre of socialites whose attention was now fully captured by the drama unfolding before them. Excuse me, but this is an exclusive gala. Disruptions will not be tolerated. Her voice echoed with a weight of authority that sent the assembled crowd into a murmured frenzy. As Lila's eyes narrowed, I stumbled backwards, suddenly feeling like an outsider in a world far too complicated for me to understand. Panic filled the gaps where hope had resided moments ago. I looked between Jasper and Lila, two people bound by a past that neither could escape, just as the floor beneath us shifted again, something in Jasper's gaze shifted too. A new resolve crystallized there, like a conductor finally grasping the tempest of their orchestra. "Wait!" He called out to me, making direct eye contact as though we were the only ones in that room, and I felt the essence of everything we had shared shimmer between us. But before I could respond, a deafening crash sounded from the far end of the gala hall, causing the lights to flicker violently. Gasps erupted, and the crowd surged backward once more, drawing me away and obscuring Jasper in a swirl of bodies. "Jasper!" I screamed, reaching for him. But as the chaos surged around me, I realized with chilling clarity I was losing him again, and I was left clinging to only the hope that he could break free from the chains binding him to Lila. Would he? Could he? As darkness engulfed the room, leaving embers of light in his vibrant stare, a new urgency gripped my heart, because in that moment, I understood the depths of our emotional entanglements. A furious storm was coming, and it would either bring us together or tear us apart forever. The chaos receded only slightly, as shockwaves rippled through the crowd. My eyes scanned the darkened room, desperately searching for Jasper amidst the confusion. The moment we had shared felt less like a bond and more like an echo fading into silence, stolen away by unseen forces that I could still hear Lila's sharp words bouncing around my mind, her pain and anger painfully palpable. But even amidst the turmoil, a flash of kindness caught my attention. An older woman stepped forward, gripping my arm gently, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the noise like a bomb. Her presence felt grounding amidst the whirlpool of emotions, reminding me that even in moments of unrest, threads of compassion could shine through. "I am looking for Jasper," I replied, voice trembling. I longed for the sense of safety he had offered just moments ago. It felt like a distant memory, one I might never reclaim again. The woman nodded knowingly. "You're brave for doing so. Young love can be a tempest, can't it?" Her gentle smile was laced with wisdom, echoing an understanding of the whirlwind that swept through our lives. For a moment, I could see the shadow of her own youthful struggles mirrored in her aged eyes. "Yes, it seems that way," I whispered, glancing back at the swirling crowd, my heart doing a dance of unease. The elite gallery's elegance had been sliced open by drama, threads of vulnerability exposed amidst the grandeur. As the crowd dispersed back into scattered conversations, I spotted Jasper again. He was attempting to navigate the chaos, his expression determined yet conflicted, caught within Lila's storm of emotions. Guilt twisted within me, knowing that my presence could easily serve as yet another complication in a situation already hefty with unresolved feelings. Just then, a young woman approached him, her dark hair cascading like ink down her back. I recognized her as one of Lila's closest friends. She spoke to Jasper, soothingly, her hands gesturing as if to calm the storm swirling within him. Something about her felt different from Lila's fierce energy. She was all softness, an instinctive shield against their shared past. I couldn't hear her words, but I could see Jasper's shoulders relax momentarily as her presence soothed some of the tension. I felt a little twist of jealousy at the sight. It clawed at my heart, dragging me into swirling insecurities. But then, a flicker of recognition sprang within me. This was Lila's world, one filled with charm and beauty, but also heavy with expectations and a past both of them carried like shackles. The air hummed around me, a reminder of the rising stakes. Should I leave? I thought, feeling the weight of that decision. Each gentle word of the young woman made the question echo louder in my heart. But just as I turned away, Lila's sharp voice sliced through once more. "You think she's going to make you forget? You're lying to yourself if you think you can erase what we had, Jasper." There was a moment where silence fell, every ear was straining to catch the aftermath of her outburst. My heart raced in resonance with each beat of my growing anxiety. Jasper's brow furrowed, confusion and hurt layered within his expression. "It's not about forgetting. It's about finding peace." His voice boomed, filled with fervor, yet he looked like he was standing on the brink of a cliff ready to tumble into the abyss below. "Finding peace?" Lila sneered, her anger making her tremble like an unsteady flame. "With her? You love me. You just don't know it yet." In that flickering moment of chaos, I felt my ground sway beneath me, uncertainty rising like a tide. Was Jasper still tethered to their shared past, despite the way I glimpsed a possible future with him shimmering just out of reach? That questioning itself was a bitter pill to swallow, but right then, the sound of shattering glass erupted from the far side of the hall, yanking every head toward the source. Panic surged as guests cried out, some darting toward the exits, while others simply froze in place. Jasper spun around, fear etching deeper into his features, and for an instant, the world narrowed until only the two of us existed. "No!" he shouted, his voice pealing across the din, but his expression shifted as uncertainty lived quietly within him. Had I become just another obstacle in his reckoning? In that pivotal moment, I felt the invisible strings of fate pulling, drawing me closer yet tearing me apart all at once. And then, just as hope flickered, Lila turned to me, an inscrutable look clouding her face. "This is your fault," she spat, emotion coursing through her with an intensity that ignited underlying tensions. Her finger pointed like a lightning bolt, her accusation echoing louder than the chaos around us. At that moment, a punch of panic gripped me. Couldn't she see that I was merely trying to connect with someone who complicated my heart as much as she complicated his? "Lila, don't." Jasper's voice broke through, but my heart felt heavy in the face of this emotional avalanche. That I in an almost surreal haze, a heavy-set man stumbled backward into me, knocking me off balance and forcing me into the pulsating crowd. I struggled to right myself, painfully aware of the growing divide that was being carved deeper with every harsh breath, and then, grounding myself, I spun around once more, desperate to catch Jasper's gaze, to hold on to that connection. But he was locked in a heated gaze with Lila, their emotions swirling like a living entity around us, pulling me into darkness that I could feel hope slipping away like sand through my fingers. The world was a tempest, swirling beyond comprehension, and I stood on the edge of this hurricane wondering if I would ever find my way back into the eye of connection with Jasper again. Just as that thought echoed in my mind, something jolted within meth ground shifting beneath my feet. As I reached for the short distance between us right when everything seemed to pulse with possibility, a tectonic shift happened, the lights flickered again, and a deafening shout echoed from somewhere unknown. My heart sank as dread knotted itself tighter. What could possibly unfold next? The sudden shout cut through the chaos like a bead of ice, momentarily freezing everyone in place. It was as if time had taken a breath, and then exhaled in a whirlwind of confusion. My heart raced, thrumming a desperate beat against the confines of my chest as I sought any sign of stability within this storm of emotions. Jasper and Lila remained locked in their confrontation, their expressions swirling with conflict and an array of unsaid words that felt heavy enough to rupture something deep within me. "Did you hear that?" The voice of the older woman who had shown me kindness broke through my isolated bubble of anxiety. She clutched her handbag tightly, eyes scanning the crowd. "Something isn't right." I nodded, but my focus was nowhere near her comforting presence. My gaze remained fixed on Jasper, a luminescent figure woven with shadows, the connection we had forged seemingly teetering on the brink of collapse. No words could adequately convey what was churning within Meth. Need to reach out, to pull him free, was palpable, yet every moment spent watching their tension felt like a dagger to my heart. But the world shifted once more. As if orchestrated by a masterful conductor, heavy bodies pressed against one another, pulsating around me, encapsulated in their own waves of fear and uncertainty. It was disorienting, yet strangely familiar. I had lived through turbulent seasons of my emotions before, but never had it been encapsulated in a grand gala festooned with elegance and despair. "Stay close," the older woman urged, her grip tightening on my arm as she stepped forward, as if charging against the tide of chaos. Her protective instinct sparked a warmth within me, igniting a flicker of hope that against all odds, I might find solace here. "Margot? Margot." The voice sliced through the noise, distinct and found, touching me like a lifeline. I turned, catching sight of my friend Christine, the fierce spirit I had shared so many late nights and whispered secrets with. She was standing near the entrance, eyes wide and frantic. Relief flooded through me, and I pushed past the crowd toward her. "Margot!" she cried again, breaking through the chaos as I reached her. The way her brow furrowed in worry punctuated the urgency of our race against time. "I was looking for you. We need to get out." "Why? What's happening?" My voice was tight, betraying the surge of panic I felt. "Maybe they're just drunk," she said, attempting to wave off the apprehension, but her voice trembled. "But I heard someone mention a fight and then, something about a weapon." The tremor in her voice echoed the churning anxiety in my gut. "A weapon?" The thought struck like lightning. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted from elegant party to raw survival, a dance where uncertainty led, and fear reigned. Instinctively, I glanced back at Jasper, who stood with Lila like two combatants ready to clash. "Jasper!" I shouted, my voice ringing out above the frenetic chaos. He turned, and for the briefest moment, our eyes locked, a tempest brewing in the depths of his gaze, a mixture of despair and determination. But just as quickly, he turned back to Lila, caught once again in the crossfire of their unresolved past. With a guttural feeling of helplessness echoing in my chest, I felt my heart breaking for both of them. The lights flickered ominously overhead, casting erratic shadows across the room. Lila's anger surged once more, but then her expression shifted as if she were looking past Jasper at something behind him, something ominous and consuming. I spun around, glancing behind me, squinting against the chaotic flurry of bodies until I spotted movement, growing closer, a figure emerging from the shadows with an air of certainty that sent a wave of dread crashing over the room. My breath hitched, and time seemed to stagger before crashing ahead, as the figure came into focus. It was a man, impeccably dressed in stark contrast to the growing noise. I recognized him, my stomach dropping at the realization. It was Victor, Lila's brother, the one thrown into the shadows of their family drama, a lingering chapter. I had no desire to read that. I had heard rumors about him ever since stepping into this glamorous world, murmurs of volatile emotions masked beneath a veneer of sophistication. But in that instant, as he surveyed the crowd, exuding a potent mixture of control and malice, I felt the truth slice through me. He was the storm that silence warned of. "Margot, please." Christine pulled me back toward the exit as the air thickened with uncertainty around us. But my feet wouldn't move. I remained anchored in place as if some invisible chain bound me to the unavoidable collision unfolding before us. "Everyone, stay calm," Victor called out, voice smooth yet commanding. "There's been a misunderstanding, but everything will be under control soon. Just let me handle it." The way he spoke twisted something deep within me, a tingle of fear that both thrilled and terrified. "What does he want?" I muttered, sinking into a growing pit of dread. "That I don't know, but we need to hurry," Christine urged again. "Margot, please," but my gaze remained fixed, unable to break away from the spectacle before me. Tension knotted in the air, palpable enough to cut. I felt Jasper take a step toward Victor, revealing the depth of conflict brewing, filling the space with a palpable electricity. The divergence of paths, the unresolved feelings, the sheer weight of history coalesced into an immense, throbbing silence. "Leave him alone, Victor," Jasper shouted, finally summoning the voice I had longed to hear directed toward an adversary. "This is between me and Lila." As if the universe trembled with anticipation, every eye turned to Victor, waiting for his response, waiting for the storm to unleash, and just like that, the ground beneath us seemed to quake with ominous promise, a battle of wills poised to break the silence, while I declared this moment would change everything. As chaos reigned and hearts raced, I could only hold my breath, knowing that whatever happened next would extend beyond this gala, reverberating through lives like an echo never to be forgotten. The atmosphere thickened, palpable with unease and an undercurrent of fear as Victor's gaze swept over the crowd, lingering on Jasper. It was a moment that stretched infinitely, suspended in time, waiting for the first move in a game whose stakes felt higher than anything I could comprehend. My heart thrummed louder, each beat a desperate plea for some semblance of peace. As Victor opened his mouth to respond, a series of muffled exclamations erupted behind him. A couple near the entrance had begun to whisper urgently, their expressions tightly pinched with alarm. It was as if their fear had ignited a spark in the crowd that simmered just beneath the surface, threatening to explode at any second. "Please, Margot." Christina's plea pulled me back from the brink of my tumultuous thoughts. "We have to go now." Suddenly, Victor's disarming charm flickered like a candle in a storm. A sinister smile crept along his lips as he continued, "I assure you, I hold no ill will. We're all friends here, after all." My skin crawled at the vein of menace underlying his words. "Get away from him, Victor," Lila snarled, her posture shifting as if in defiance. "This isn't your show to are you?" And in that moment, my heart ached not only for Jasper but for Lila too. The remnants of their past loomed heavily over each word exchanged, a ghost of what had been and what could never be. My thoughts whirled, struggling to grasp the crux of the pain igniting such fiery emotions. A flicker of understanding sparked within me. Their shared history wasn't merely an obstacle but a visceral entity that pulsed between them, alive and unforgiving. "Lila, "I'm only here to help," Victor replied, tilting his head slightly, his facade breaking momentarily to reveal a vulnerability overshadowed by arrogance. It was fleeting but poignant. "You need to understand that this is bigger than you, bigger than us." Lila echoed incredulously, her voice rising. "This is about our family. It always is with you. You think you can just manipulate us all enough." Victor's voice thundered through the chaos, and I felt the collective breath of the crowd hold tight. He stepped forward, commanding the space with confidence. "I'm here to settle things once and for all. We don't have to do this the hard way." Jasper clenched his fists, a visible strain evident on his face. The intensity of his gaze bore into Victor, two worlds colliding. I felt a pang of anguish for them both, a confrontation wherein neither would emerge unscathed. "Jasper, don't," I managed to whisper, catching his eye once more. "We can still leave," but the fierce resolve shining in his eyes told me he wasn't thinking about escape. He was standing his ground, grounded in courage fueled by the past. "That I won't let you intimidate anyone anymore, Victor. Whatever game you're playing, we're done being pawns." Jasper's voice broke through the encroaching chaos like a piercing arrow, fierce and unwavering. "That heartbeat." I saw the tremor within the crowd shift. Whispers churned around us, but there too, amidst dread, was the stirrings of bravery, people bonding through shared fear, looking for an escape. It gave a flicker of hope. If they could unify against this darkness, perhaps we could too. "Careful, Jasper," Victor warned, his voice smooth but tainted with condescension. "You don't want to bite off more than you can chew. I know how to play rough." His eyes flitted to Lila, momentarily revealing the cracks of pain etched into their fraught relationship. "And I know about your little secrets too." The blow landed heavier than a fist. Lila's face paled, a shadow of turmoil crossing her features. The dimension of a hidden truth loomed above us, and I could feel the ground shift beneath my feet like an earthquake skirting the edges of revealed fire. "Victor, don't you dare bring that up," Lila hissed, fear mingling with fury. I could see her grappling with some ancient hurt, a wound that never healed. The urge to intervene clawed at my insides, but my body remained frozen, riveted by the intensity of the charged air around us. I caught a glimpse of Christine. She was moving to my side, her eyes imploring me to reconsider fleeing, to see this through, but I could feel the maelstrom expanding, begging for resolution. "Very well, dear sister," Victor said coolly, an edge of triumph evident in his voice. "But know this, the truth tends to find its way to the surface, regardless of how deep one buries it." With those words, a collective gasp unfurled through the crowd. The underlying tension crackled, the atmosphere electric with an impending explosion. 1,000 eyes flitted between Jasper, Lila, and Victor, the orchestra of our shared fate building to a crescendo where shockwaves could ripple out and reshape the world as we knew it. Then it happened. Somewhere in the chaos that enveloped us, a scream punctuated the raw, piercing wail that echoed through walls, sending shivers racing down spines. Even in the protective cocoon Christine and I found ourselves sheltered within. My heart lurched as the noise surged and swelled, the crowd shifted like pieces on a board caught in a game we played but didn't understand. Jasper turned, eyes wide with horror as realization dawned upon him. Lila screamed again, but this time it was soaked in something deeper, something that felt far too close, too real. "Now what did you do?" Lila gasped, panic rising as the crowd began to surge, pushing back from the entrance they had only a moment before feared. And at that moment, a reflection of pure terror flickered across Victor's face, a certainty that something had been orchestrating had spiraled wildly out of his control. His confident facade began to crumble, the realization rippling forth with chilling resonance that I held my breath, gripping Christina's hand as the echoes of that scream ricocheted through the air like shards of glass, leaving us teetering on a precipice only darkness dared traverse. The truth that swirled around us threatened to unveil relationships, secrets, and intentions in a tar pit of heart-wrenching revelations waiting to swallow us whole. For in the world that braced for collision, I couldn't help but wonder what comes after the storm. The echo of the scream lingered in the air, wrapping around us like a tangible shroud. Silence fell as the crowd's collective breath paused, a hesitant standoff imbued with uncertainty. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs, and I found myself frozen, caught between the churning sea of people and the tempest of emotions swirling within me. "Jasper." I reached out, my voice cutting through the stillness, desperate to anchor us amidst the rising tide of apprehension. He turned, that glint of resolve still glimmering, but beneath it lay a festering wound of anguish that threatened to spill over. Fractured histories surged to the forefront, and I could see the weight of his choices press heavily upon him. "Everyone, move," Victor commanded, his voice strained yet demanding, like a marionette tugging at the strings of our fears. But the crowd was rooted, paralyzed by the tremulous uncertainty surrounding Victor's waning confidence. Christine tugged at my arm, her eyes wide and frantic. "We have to get out of here," she breathed, but my eyes were drawn to Lila, who stood frozen next to Jasper, her face a canvas of shock and unspoken pain. Victor's gaze darted among the audience, sensing their growing animosity. I could see it in their eyes, a reluctant bravery sparked by Jasper's defiance. Suddenly, we weren't just an audience to a confrontation, we were part of a pulsing, living entity that could either crumble under the weight of fear or rise in unity. With trembling fingers, I reached for Jasper's hand. "We can't let him control us. We have to fight together," I urged, casting a glance toward Lila, who finally seemed to awaken from her daze. Her eyes were fierce, reflecting a mix of anger and vulnerability that urged the ground to shake. "You might not want to go down this path, Victor," she addressed him, her voice a fragile authority. "We aren't playing any of your games anymore. You've toyed with us long enough." Victor's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of something resembling fear. "What do you think you can do?" He taunted, but there was a quiver in his tone, an unwillingness to fully embrace the risk he had wielded like a weapon. "Everything you've threatened us with, it can't hold us anymore." Lila's declaration pulsed with conviction, igniting an ember of hope in the minds of the crowd. I could feel the shift like the first tremors of an earthquake, gathering energy, everyone together. Someone called from the back, rallying the crowd. A fervent response surged, drawing people forward, tightening our shared resolve. But then, the chaos erupted anew. A loud thud echoed from the entrance, splintering the moment into fragments of panic. A figure stumbled in through the crowd, drenched in rain, and for a second, disbelief washed over me as I recognized the familiar face. It was Simon, my hesitant ally, wearing a jacket too loose, his breaths coming in rapid bursts. "Get back!" he shouted, eyes wide and resolute. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." In an instant, the tension shifted again as Victor's facade of control crumbled completely. "Simon!" Lila screamed, searching for something in his frantic demeanor. "What did you find out?" I know what he's hiding. He can't be trusted, not just with us but with everything." Simon stumbled forward, urgency dripping from his every word. "You have to believe there's worse at stake here than you think." The chaos of the moment surged around us, whispers folding into gasps as curiosity mixed with fear. Jasper's grip tightened around my hand, his eyes narrowing on Simon, assessing, searching for what? Enemy or ally? Enough of this. Victor seethed, his facade cracking further. "Simon, you're only making things worse for yourself." "Worse? You think you're in control?" Simon countered boldly, his defiance wrapping around us like a protective shield. "You've buried secrets so deep, they're going to come back to haunt you and all of us." An electric silence cloaked us as everyone held their breath, every gaze fixed on Victor, whose expression morphed from confidence to palpable disbelief. The stakes had risen once again, a precarious balance in a game we didn't fully comprehend. For at that moment, I realized the walls of our world were about to shatter, revealing layers of betrayals entrenched in darkness. Jasper, Lila, Simon, they looked to me, and for the briefest moment, I felt the weight of their hopes pressed against my chest. As the ground quaked beneath us, I trembled with the knowledge that our greatest battle lay not against Victor, but within ourselves. And as if summoned by the fury of our conflict, the truth unraveled unexpectedly. From the depths of the audience, in the dim light, a figure emerged, holding a dossier clutched tightly in trembling hands. Their face seemed a mask of dread and determination, but when they stepped forward, revealing the truth hidden beneath layers of fear, it was a child barely in their teens, cheeks streaked with mud and tears, eyes wide with trepidation. "Stop!" they cried out, and the haunting words echoed, holding us captive as a new revelation settled in the air, heavy with foreboding. What came next didn't carry the promise of resolution, but rather a damning unveiling of hard choices, histories intertwined in ways we had scarcely begun to grasp. My heart raced as I prepared to face the reality that, whatever the truth was, our lives would never be the same again. The child's voice shattered the silence, ringing out like a desperate plea that seemed to wrap around us all. You have to listen. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The small figure stepped closer, revealing shaking hands that clutched a stack of papers. In the flickering light, I could see their youthful face, streaked with dirt and worry, and my stomach twisted with an instinctual recognition of fragility. Please, we need to stop him. They looked desperately among the crowd, their gaze landing on Victor, whose expression shifted from surprise to a subtle simmer of rage. This isn't your place, kid. Back off. He spat, his voice dangerously low, a predator cornered by an unexpected threat. No. The child shouted, trembling but unwavering. You don't understand. You're not just putting yourselves at risk, you're endangering everyone. People are suffering because of you. Their voice shook, but the words cut through the atmosphere like a knife, striking chords of truth that resonated in the hearts of those present. What do you mean? Lila asked, her voice low and gripping, trying to pull the pieces together as frustration fueled questions that hung heavy in the air. Everything you're fighting for, what you think is just about you, is bigger. Victor's been hiding what he's done. The profits he's made come from people like me. People who didn't have a choice, the child revealed, taking a shaky breath that brought a well of tears to my eyes. The tension that held the crowd in a suspending grip teetered dangerously, the once confident facade of Victor visibly crumbling. No one asked for this kind of interference, he growled, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. You've been messing with lives, and I'm not the only one, there are others. The child pressed on, and I could see the way the crowd hung on each word, like a lifeline tossed into turbulent seas. What's your name? I found my voice, stepping forward, knowing I'd either help or betray them by revealing interest. Ella, they breathed, the weight of the world in their gaze. I just wanted to tell you the truth before it was too late. Before Ella cut off abruptly, glancing back at Victor as if she could see his corrupt past rising like a frothing tide behind him. What do you mean before? Jasper's brow furrowed, his voice laced with urgency. Before the report goes public, Ella continued, and the last word felt like a gunshot, ricocheting against the vulnerability of our collective hearts. You have to stop him, stop the secrets from getting out. People will be hurt, innocents, people just like me. Victor's facade shattered further, and an almost predatory anger smoldered in the depths of his eyes. Ella, you don't understand the implications of what you're saying, he hissed, desperation coating his words. My instinct screamed at the urgency pulsing in the air. The fragile thread binding our hopes was about to snap. We do understand. Lila replied fiercely, stepping forward, her courage igniting some embers within us all. You've manipulated and used us for your own gains. You think we're just pawns in a game you control, the crowd murmured, and a movement swept through them as more people began to drift closer to Ella, surrounding her with a protective instinct that felt as old as time. Enough. Victor erupted, threatening destruction in each syllable. His bravado cracked like an ill-forged weapon, revealing a more dangerous and volatile nature, one we had only begun to glimpse. Suddenly, Jasper pulled me aside, his intensity like a consuming fire. What if Ella's right? What if this isn't just about us anymore? My heart raced, the reality of the situation washing over me like a deluge. It felt like we were standing on the precipice of an unfathomable truth that threatened to unravel us all alongside its possible repercussions. But we've come this far, I whispered, uncertainty creeping up my spine like icy fingers. Ella stood with what appeared to be resilience, yet there was a flicker of fear in her eyes, an understanding of what was at stake, a burden held on such small shoulders. You have to believe me. It's bigger than revenge, it's survival. Victor lurked closer, his presence absorbing the air around us, and I realized we were being propelled into an abyss of moral conflict. Choosing to stand beside Ella felt terrifying but necessary. Get the documents, Ella. I called, my heart pounding with necessity, urging her against the tide of uncertainty. We'll figure it out together. But before she could respond, Victor lunged forward, a blur of rage and determination that sent cold shivers down my spine. The crowd gasped as Ella stumbled back, the papers sliding from her grip like fallen leaves in the autumn wind. Just as I opened my mouth to shout, the lights above us flickered violently before plunging us into darkness, a darkness that enveloped everything, amplifying the urgency of our fight, turning fear into a living creature of its own. Stay close. Jasper's voice cut through the chaos, holding on to my arm tightly, but as panic ensued in the void, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed eerily, drawing near yet far. Things are about to change irrevocably. Victor's voice broke through, a strained whisper filled with treachery. And no one is going to stop me. I am the consuming dark. I couldn't shake the chilling thought that the reckoning we had been dreading was finally upon us, and as long-shackled secrets began clawing their way to the surface, our lives hung precariously in the balance. It was a race against shadows, and it was clear we were no longer just fighting for ourselves. Lives intertwined with ours were at stake, and as revelations loomed like dark clouds, I knew I had to uncover the truth before it was truly too late. The darkness was thick and suffocating, a living entity that pressed against our skin and tugged at our senses. Panic surged through the crowd as I instinctively reached out for something, anything to ground me in this unsettling void. Ella's frightened breaths filled the silence, pure and laced with disbelief. Even amidst the chaos, her determination shone brighter than any light. Ella. I called, my voice echoing futilely against the shadows. Where are you? I'm here. She shouted back, her voice wavering yet strong, a lifeline in the storm. We have to keep moving. We can't let him win. Jasper's grip tightened around my arm, pulling me toward the direction of the sound. I followed blindly, the crowd shifting like a living organism, collectively searching for clarity and escape. I could sense fear swirling, mingling with an undercurrent of bravery, each heartbeat resonating with the urgency of our mission. Suddenly, the distant thud of footsteps crescendoed, a harbinger of Victor's relentless pursuit, echoing ominously in the hollow dark. You think you can hide from the truth? His voice seeped into the air, dripping with malice. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Is he serious? Jasper murmured, his breath a steely whisper in my ear. He seems more dangerous than I thought. We have to listen to Ella, I replied, my heart racing as I tried to focus. She knows something we don't, and her life, like so many others, is at stake. That moment, a remarkable shift occurred among the crowd, the whispers turned into murmurs of solidarity. We won't let you tear us apart. Someone shouted defiantly. The sound reverberated like a beacon of hope. We were more than our fears, more than pawns in Victor's game. We were building a resistance forged in the unity of our desperation. Gather around. I shouted, attempting to project a sense of control amidst the chaos. Ella, tell us what we need to do. As Ella took a breath, the tension surrounding her was palpable. I heard Victor's plans, the way he's been manipulating everything. There's a affiliate digital report. If it goes public, it could ruin lives. She hesitated, her voice trembling. Not just ours. Innocence will pay the price, Jasper interjected, but how do we find it? If Victor gets his hands on it first, we have to separate him from the crowd, Ella urged, her eyes sparkling with urgency. If we can distract him long enough, I can access the server in the back. But we have to move quickly. Another roar of footsteps grew louder, reminding us that Victor was gaining ground. The exit, we can make a run for it, I suggested, looking for any glimmer of direction. Just then, a flicker threatened to break through the shroud of darkness. A soft blue glow emanated from some source, illuminating the faces around us. To my astonishment, rather than fear, I began to see determination etched on their expressions, eyes lit with courage. But before we could react, the lights flickered back on, painfully bright, illuminating the scene before us. In the glaring light, Victor stood tall and seething, just a few feet away, flanked by a group of menacing figures whose faces I recognized, the very shadows of intimidation I thought I could escape. You think you can turn this against me? Victor's laughter echoed through the space low, mocking each sound, flooding me with dread. This is only the beginning, the crowd fidgeted, uncertainty blossoming again as Victor's minions closed ranks. With a rush of adrenaline, I stepped forward, shouting, enough. You can't win if we stand together. We won't let you use us against each other. A ripple of agreement passed through the throng, voices rising in defiance. There was power in vulnerability, a bond shared in our struggle. Victor. Someone called from the back, their tone daring. You think you control our lives? You're wrong. But as the tide of unity swelled, Victor's eyes narrowed, reflecting a sinister predatory glint. You're playing a dangerous game, and you have no idea the lengths it'll go to silence your insipid cries. He gestured toward the darkened corridor leading deeper into the gala's recesses. If you want to challenge me, be prepared to face the consequences of your little rebellion. Ella's face paled but hardened simultaneously, an anguished resolve threading through her features. You may think you're untouchable, but every secret you've hidden will come to light. And we will find a way to save everyone you've endangered. Without warning, he smirked, revealing a smidge of his true malevolence like a distorted mirror reflecting unrestrained ambition. Let's see if you can keep that fire alive, little one. Because the real game is about to begin. Suddenly, the lights dimmed a second time, a disorienting flicker shaking the room as he lunged forward, grabbing the nearest figurine unsuspecting man by the collar. You'll all regret your choices in this matter. He spat, a wolf prowling through treacherous terrain, but then, a miracle emerged from the fray in the form of an unexpected voice, a familiar, steady tone that cut through the chaos like a knife. Let him go, Victor. All eyes turned to see Gregory, the wealthy owner of the venue, stepping forward with calm authority, as the crowd fell into a hush. A gleam of something in his eyes, kindness or power, was difficult to decipher, but his presence shifted the dynamic palpably. I've had enough of your cruelty. The people deserve to be heard. His voice resonated, jarring the dramatic tension. If you think they're fragile, you've underestimated their strength. The room hung on a precipice, the fear mingling with the hope of something unforeseen deepening the emotional quagmire swirling around us. A moment of silence passed, and I held my breath, painfully aware that while this unexpected alliance might be our salvation, it could also spiral into the darkness of a greater revelation. In that split second, Victor turned to face Gregory, an expression of incredulous rage clouding his features. You dare betray your own? As the escalating tensions unfolded, a realization washed over me. We were at the cusp of an emotional nail-biting climax, and the choices made in the next breath could alter not just our lives, but the very course of everything we thought we knew. With hearts racing and the weight of countless lives resting on our shoulders, every shared glance now swirled with an array of possibilities, the light and dark of life balancing on an edge. The fight was only beginning, and as Victor's intentions unspooled like threads of a dark tapestry, we stood at the threshold, facing down the storm fanning out before us. The truth awaited, hidden in shadows, and it was now or never. We had to decide which side we would choose. I stood in the luminescence of panic and disbelief, my heart a wild drum forcing its relentless rhythm against the confines of my chest. Ella's words rang in my ears, the echoes of her brave confession intertwining with the ripple of fear around us. I felt the frail threads of our shared reality breaking apart, toughness washing over like fraying fabric. It was becoming painfully clear this wasn't just a fashion gala anymore. This was a battleground of souls entangled in the vigorous fight for survival, truth, and redemption. As I watched Ella stand next to Jasper, a periphery of strength in her being, a flicker of courage ignited within me, a refusal to be a passive observer in someone else's crisis. You're not alone in this, Ella, I shouted, channeling every ounce of resolve I could muster. We're with you. You'll never face him alone. The crowd seemed to swell in agreement, their collective fear transforming into a vibrant tapestry of determination spinning through the air. They might not know it yet, but they were no longer just a collection of socialites and outsiders. We were a community standing against a shared tempest, ready to unearth the monsters lurking in the shadows. Victor's hardened facade twisted further as he scanned the audience, an unsettling glimmer of uncertainty etched within the depths of his ice-cold determination. You think you can stop me? You're just fools to believe power can be toppled by empty pleas. There was an undercurrent of menace anchoring his voice, a crushing weight pressing down on our resolve that I won't let you destroy others any longer. You can't manipulate us. Lilith's voice rang out with fierce defiance. She stepped forward, unflinching even against the storm that was Victor. The truth has already begun to unravel, you can feel it. People know what you've done. Jasper and I exchanged glances. There was something in her tone, something transformational, like the spark igniting a fuse. Was this the moment when our narratives would intertwine in the quest for truth, when we would expose Victor's facade and illuminate our dim corners of despair? But just as hope began to swell within me, Victor erupted, anger eclipsing the space between us. You have no concept of what you're dealing with. You truly think you can unearth the buried truths without consequence? I will end this here and now. His outburst punctuated the moment, ushering waves of dread through the audience. The tension in the air thickened with haunting anticipation. Stop. A new voice rang out again, more forceful than before. It was Simon, his expression taut with urgency. You may think you're untouchable, Victor, but lies always find a way to surface. He moved closer to Ella, recognizing the links in our collective narrative that had woven so tightly together. Enough. Victor spat, fuming with rage as he glared at Simon. You think anyone will believe the word of a child? Do you truly think your moral indignation will hold any weight? He waved dismissively, the haunting sound slithering into our ears like a venomous serpent, but it wasn't just Ella's youth that rendered her words powerful. It was the truth, the undeniable, raw truth that erupted from a place of authenticity that defined a generation yearning for freedom from chains forged in the fire of greed. Our collective outrage was breaking ground, moving through the throng like a living force filled with warmth and solidarity. Everyone deserves to be heard. Someone shouted from the back, and like a rippling wave, our voices grew louder, more fierce. We will expose your lies, Victor. Together. The swell of solidarity strengthened, each declaration fueled by the fire of countless lives yearning for recognition. As we rallied together, each person's courage shone like a beacon, illuminating the darkness that had crept in so slowly, yet suffocated us so thoroughly. I felt it coursing through me like lifeblood, an awakening that spread farther than I could see. It rippled, wrapped around us all, transforming a singular fight into the rallying cry for collective action. In that defining moment, I sensed something crucial shifting. Perhaps Victor was no longer the powerful puppeteer but just another solitary man trying to hold on to the past he would ultimately lose. His fury, palpable and edifying, shifted toward desperation. The tide was turning. The swelling courage of our community pressed against him like a tide of determination, awakening something raw and unyielding within all of us. And then, Ella spoke again, her voice unwavering amidst the roiling emotion. You can drown us in darkness, but you cannot extinguish our light. We've seen your actions. We've felt your spite, and we won't carry your burdens any longer. The clarity in her voice transcended her youth, and in that moment, she became something far more powerful, an embodiment of hope that pierced through fear. Victor's expression darkened as if Ella's brave truth sharpened all his resentments, each accusation sculpting a fracture in his carefully constructed reality. Shut up, little girl. He bellowed, desperation bleeding into his voice, but the growing conviction in the crowd overshadowed his threats. Worn down by encroaching tides of collective hope, Victor faltered. In a moment that seemed to suspend time, I could see the foundations of his power trembling. You don't get to decide who's a victim, I added, compelled to speak up more forcefully now. People like us, like Ella, should never have been cast aside for profit. Your greed can't win this time. The faces in the crowd reflected a kaleidoscope of resolve, intricately woven with shared purpose. It was empowering, igniting a warmth that surged through the room, heating our resolve. We were no longer bound by insecurity or fear. Together we embodied the complex beauty of human determination that flourished in adversity. I will do what I must to protect what is mine. Victor spat, but the venom in his voice began to falter as the tempo of our uprising solidified. With an authority that shocked even me, I shouted, we are the many, and you are just one. Your days of hiding behind others will end here. In the face of our genuine outrage, Victor's bravado began to erode. The truth had emerged from the shadows like dawn chasing away the night. It was no longer his game to control, it was ours to shape. We lurched into action, hearts colliding, forging a new path grounded in honesty and connection, and with that wave of overwhelming unity, the last remnants of Victor's power crumbled. The connection entwined within us manifested like a powerful movement, sweeping him back towards his former shadows, leaving in its wake trembling remnants of fear rather than the once feared tyrant. But even as we clung to our triumph, I felt the world shift beneath my feet. The culmination of past pain, unresolved histories, and strained relationships lay still cradled within me. I had fought shoulder to shoulder with Lila, Jasper, Ella, and the crowd before us, each struggling to overcome their own demons. And just as we had risen together, there hovered an inevitable question burning in the air. Would we, too, be able to reconcile with our pasts? Just then, an unexpected silence settled upon us, pregnant with the weight of what lay ahead. With air brimming with muted anticipation, I found myself seeking Jasper's gaze, needing to know beyond the prolonging chaos, where did we stand now? His eyes met mine, shimmering with promise, reflecting the birth of resilience born from the heat of crucible we had endured. In that gaze, I saw the acknowledgement of our intertwined fates, broken yet healed, tender yet bold, on a precipice of something we had yet to define. The crowd surged as people turned toward each other, unraveling the tension in shared breaths of relief. Lila took a step toward Jasper and me, her earlier fury replaced by something softer, a reluctant kinship. "I know how it feels to carry the weight of what has haunted us," she admitted gently, her voice weaving through the air like a warm embrace. "But perhaps we can face what lies ahead together. Maybe that's the truth we all need to embrace," Jasper added, eyes sparkling with determination. "To finally confront our pasts without fear, because together, we are stronger." And as I stood witnessing the tentative smiles breaking across their faces, the palette of possibility surged through me like an awakening, a breathtaking realization dawning that the strength and tenderness of our unrealized connections could hold us through anything. Together, we would turn our shared darkness into light, the possibility of forgiveness and understanding intertwining effortlessly in the tapestry we were forming, one stitched with threads of resilience and hope. And in that breathtaking moment, I knew deeply, the greatest victories don't always come from triumphing over others. They surface when we rise together, with a single shared pulse beating in our chests, the emotional climax of the journey we had undertaken beneath the veneer of so many masks. "Perhaps now we can begin to heal," I murmured to the air, a weight lifted as I breathed in freedom. The uncertainties of life seemed less daunting in the embrace of newfound connection, spun from compassion and a promise that tomorrow would dawn a little brighter for all of us. And as the world shifted around me, like waves responding to the winds of change, I felt a stirring of hope flare within our gathered hearts. Because together, we were an unstoppable force, a radiant reminder that the journey is rarely walked alone. It is forged in the hearts of those willing to listen, to rise, and to believe in redemption. As we stood united, an indomitable source of strength wrapped around us, leaving me with a poignant understanding. Sometimes, it takes a storm to reveal the beauty of shared breaking, and within our vulnerability, we find the cathartic surge of rebirth that carries us forward into a new dawn of possibility.